Hey everybody, happy Friday to you. It is me, Niger Drakes here, founder of Spark Her Blaze. I would love to know who is out there joining us for this exciting show. I just cannot wait. I've been looking forward to this show for a couple of weeks now because the downside to having so many guests on the show is we got to coordinate all these schedules of all these bosspreneurs, and that can be a challenge, but we did it. So I'm so excited today to have these amazing women with us this evening. So again, my name is Niger Drakes. I am the founder of Spark Her Blaze, where we empower women to spark their flame so that they can blaze their uniquely divine trail through adopting purposeful mindsets, purposeful priorities, and purposeful pursuits. So that is what we are talking about tonight with these amazing women. So I don't want to waste too much time because I know they have such a wealth of knowledge and experience to share with us tonight. And I don't want to miss out on any of that because the time always goes by so fast. So I'm going to start off by introducing my guest this evening. So I'm going to start off with Ms. Kimba Williams. She is with us this evening from sunny Florida.
Hi, everybody.
Near the beach. And she is a best-selling author. She has pursued many business paths. She is going to talk to us tonight about her venture with BK Naturals, where she has developed and co-founded a natural feminine care products company for women, of course. And I am excited for her to talk about her company, Couché, tonight with us. She is also the winner of 7, I repeat, 7 wow, business pitch competitions. And she has been featured in Vogue, Essence, and Black Enterprise, just to name a few. So we are just so honored to have her here this evening. Welcome to the show, Kimba.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And she's my Spelman sister. Hey, so we are just so excited to have her. I am going to next introduce our guest, special guest as well, Tori Sudan. And Tori is a designer, a luxury shoe designer. Let me clarify, of the Tori Sudan brand. And we are so excited to have her here today. Her shoes have been worn by celebrities like Carrie Underwood, Zendaya, Angela Bassett, Tamron Hall, the people on this show, you know, famous folks, just kidding. But she has been featured in so many magazines, including InStyle, Essence, BET, and we are just so thrilled to have her, and also my Spelman sister, if I might add.
Hello, everyone. Thank you.
Hello, Tori. Welcome to the show. And last but not least, I have somebody that I have known the longest, her entire life. It would be my sister, Tulani Aday, who is here this evening. She is a longtime entrepreneur, a fearless entrepreneurial visionary, has been running her first business since the age of 22 and has been going strong ever since. She runs a thriving dance studio here in Atlanta, Georgia, and she is here to share how she started her company from the ground up in her early 20s. So I am excited about my guest. Again, I'm Niger Drakes, founder of Spark Her Blaze, and we are going to get straight to the show. I want to tell y'all, first of all, why I had to do this show. I had to do this show because so many women want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't know necessarily where, the how, you know, and for us as Black women in the entrepreneurial space, sometimes it can get lonely out here and we don't see as much representation of ourselves. And then the aspirational figures in our lives are not necessarily there. And so I know that especially right now with COVID, you know, if people weren't thinking about entrepreneurial ventures before, or they thought maybe at some point, now a lot of people are like, hey, I might want to think about, side hustle, some kind of backup plan because of the conditions that we find ourselves in. And so that is why this show was so important to me. And so I thought about that Shirley Chisholm quote where she says, when you don't get a seat at the table, bring up a folding chair. And these ladies have brought the folding chairs, invited themselves to tables, so that we could basically have some folks out here who are blazing some trails. So I am excited about this. And I want to get into the nitty gritty, ladies, of how you did this and what was involved, and ultimately share with our viewers some ways that they can position themselves to be able to launch that venture and take that step. So I'm going to start off with just asking you just a few questions about how did this whole thing get started? Like, what was the motivation behind you saying, you know what? I gotta do me. I gotta be my own boss. Tori, what made you say, this is what I need to be doing?
Well, my moment came from a situation that happened at Spelman. The moment that I knew I was going to do this and I was not going to turn back. And that moment was when I had made a dress for my roommate. I don't know.
I was
Ina
there.
Daniels.
I saw that dress. I was at homecoming.
You're for
coronation that year, and I saw that dress. That was a dress.
Wow, thank you. That was the moment for me because I had gone to Spelman. I was into fashion for most of my life, but I went to Spelman because I thought being a designer was not just because, but I went in search of doing something else because I thought that it was impossible to become a designer.
Wow.
So when I went to Spelman, I didn't share with anyone that I wanted to go in fashion. I was just trying to find something else. And Ina shared with me that she needed a dress for the pageant. And I just said, you know what? I can make you a dress. And she looked at me like I was crazy. Like, what? But I showed her a book that I had of all the dresses that I made, and she trusted me. And so when I saw her walking across the stage, it was like, my future was in front of me. Like what I could become was in front of me. Something about being on the stage, maybe, or the way she just worked the dress. I mean,
you worked the dress. Oh, she worked that dress.
You worked the dress, right? And so I just remember sitting there, like I sat in the audience crying, just coming to that realization, because it was like one of those moments where, I just always say like the Wizard of Oz or the Wiz, right?
Right.
Where Dorothy's trying to find a wizard so she can find what she needs to get back home, but she already had everything inside of her. It was that moment for me where I was just like, I can do this.
I can do this.
Yeah.
No turning back. No turning back.
No turning back. And then I sought out everything I could at Spelman that was remotely related to fashion and did that. I was a costume designer for some of the productions. I think I remember dressing you in a production with African clothing. Do you remember that production?
You did that.
Yeah, yes.
That was a celebration. I was in a celebration in black.
Celebration of black, right.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
that is wild, full circle moment for real. Like, okay, so when you left Spelman, like, did you ever take a detour for fashion, or like, was it fashion? Did you ever have to find yourself like, okay, I got to pay bills, I got to eat?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
all right.
But my perspective on being an entrepreneur is, people think you want to start a floral shop, then you need to just focus on being a florist and that's it. But my thought is that everything that you do in life adds value to when you're building your business.
Absolutely.
And that's what I discovered. So, after that moment when I made the dress, I studied abroad in Paris, was introduced to shoes and got hooked on shoes at that point. But I went on to graduate school. I got my MBA degree in finance, worked in finance for a number of years, taught at Morgan State University as an adjunct professor. But it really solidified my foundation in the financial aspect of running a business, which was helpful.
Got it. That's really good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I want to put a pin in there right there, because I want us to come back to what happened once you came out of teaching in the university and using your MBA, and how that pivoted into the shoe industry. So Kimba, tell me a little bit about, like, okay, so I know your background is a little bit different because it wasn't that straight line trajectory. It kind of reminds me of my trajectory. It's kind of like, but ultimately it's ultimately, you know, moving in the forward direction. It just isn't all nice and clean like a lot of people think it should be. So tell me a little bit about, like, how did you end up in the entrepreneurial world?
Right. So I always knew that there was going to be something I did that was cool because my first name is Kimba. And growing up, I was like, you know, I'm going to be like Madonna, you know, because she didn't have a last name. So I'm going to be that girl. And then Beyonce came along. I was like, girl, bye, that was supposed to be my turn. But anyway, I let Beyonce have it. And now it's going to be me. So I always knew that I wanted to do something different and special and be known for something. But when I left Spelman, I worked for Coca-Cola for a number of years. So started right into the corporate world of things. And the money was great. Company car, credit cards, like, you know, what a 22-year-old would want. Yeah, any one of them, I guess, most of them. And went from selling Coke then to pharmaceutical industries. So everybody was like, the running joke is, oh, you went from Coke to selling drugs. And I was like, you know, but anyway, I went from Coke to selling drugs, and but medicinal drugs. And as I continued going along, I actually found that I was truly not valued for typically being the only Black woman in the room, sometimes the only Black person in the room. So as I began to climb this corporate ladder, I felt I was on my own, and that every next step came with issues of, who is this woman of color? Can we trust her to do this? Can we trust her to do that? And I had a stellar record. And so after about 20 years, each career lasted shorter and shorter and shorter. I mean, the last career job that I took on, it lasted 4 months, and I was like, I got to get the hell out of here. There was a desire in my soul, like, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of, after 20 years, having to prove myself. I have an amazing record. Nobody else in the room looks like me, and yet you guys are still questioning my ability and the excellence behind who I am. And so, of course, I went back to the, don't you know I'm Kimba? You know, that whole thing.
Oh my gosh, wow. Okay,
like,
yes.
Girl. And so luckily I met my co-founder on a girls' trip on a cruise. She's a physician, she's an OBGYN, and we just kind of got talking about different things and health.
Did y'all like plan to go on the cruise together, or did y'all like meet on the cruise?
So we planned on going together, but I didn't know her. So she was my best friend invited her. And so it was like a friend of a friend. Wow. And when I first met her, of course, I had been selling pharmaceuticals for some time. So I was like, oh, she's a doctor, I guess, you know, because I was a bit of a naturalista. So I was like, no, girl, you know, I'm into natural stuff and bump these medicines, and you need to be about natural, holistic lifestyles. But she was a breast cancer survivor is what I found out. And by the time she and I finished talking, I was like sitting on her bed, like, tell me more. You know, I just fell in love with her. Oh my
gosh. And, that is so amazing how God just lines things.
Just lines it up.
End up in places that, you know, you're thinking, I'm just going to go on a cruise. I'm just about to go chill and like relax my mind. And who knew that from there, your next big entrepreneurial venture would be Spark? That is
my biggest one yet. Exactly.
Wow.
My biggest one yet. And it's been 2.5 years later, and it's been amazing. So
that is amazing. Awesome sauce. Yes, definitely more on that. So I am going to come to my sister, Tulani Ade, and she is going to talk a little bit about her experience because, okay, and we'll talk about this later, just like, you know, as an entrepreneur, how hard it can be from the standpoint of most people don't get us. They do not get us. They're just like, say what? So wait, you had a job? Okay, so you left? Wait, you didn't get fired? Wait, you left. Okay, so now you're struggling with business? Okay, I'm trying to understand who does that, right? And so me having in my mind always kind of knowing, having that entrepreneurial bug, when my sister right out of school was like, I'm going to turn down this offer. You tell them, Tulani, what happened? You were turning down this big offer at a company.
I don't know what exactly happened with that, but I did intern for my entire college career. So I had really cool internships, really cool experiences in marketing, which is my major. And it was all super exciting, especially the part where we got checks every to the mall and met up with friends and, just kind of spend and frivolously and just really enjoyed the corporate life as it relates to the financial aspect. And I would actually leave my corporate job and probably about 3 times a week, I would go to an after school program and mentor kids and kind of help them and work with them as far as teaching dance was concerned. And so I really found myself at work just kind of planning out what I was going to do in the afternoons when I left work, as opposed to, focusing on what I was supposed to have been doing. And so at the end of my 4th year interning, I decided, I think I'm going to start a business.
Straight out of school.
Yeah, I took out a loan and didn't really have a whole lot of plan, but I just kind of went for it. And here I am 12 years later.
12 years later, and the sister who was like, say what? Wait, you're working at GE? Oh, wait, you're not working at GE? Oh, you started a dance studio? Great.
Probably weren't as supportive as I would have liked.
Welcome to the life of being an entrepreneur, where everybody's just like, what are you doing? Really, it's not until we get to the point where people see us, right? And we reach a certain point that all of a sudden they're like, oh, wow, yeah, I knew you were going to always be great, girl.
Exactly.
Yeah, girl, I knew you were about to be successful. But on that road, where people looking at you like, girl, yeah,
they talk about you bad, girl.
Yes, girl, and she done lost her mind. She designing shoes. You see,
right.
So how did you guys deal with that? Like, as an entrepreneur, I have to say that it can be a very lonely life. Definitely. Because you can't really tell people like, hey, because you're on cloud 9 and you want them to be on cloud 9 and they're on like cloud 2, like, oh, okay. Oh, okay. So ladies, how did you manage the energy of your community of folks who don't get it?
Right. I'm happy to jump in. So
yeah, go ahead, Kimba.
What I found early on is that you have to find a tribe that is basically doing what you're doing. Like, forget your family, forget a lot of your friends. They're just not going to get it. They're going to think you're crazy. And at the times where you need somebody to lean on or a shoulder, you be like, girl, I don't know what I'm going to do with such and such. They're not going to understand what you're talking about. So I found early on that I could find tribes in accelerators and incubator programs. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mass Challenge. It's one of the largest global startup accelerators in the world. And I happened to become a Mass Challenge finalist in 2018, 2 months after I started the company full time. And it was basically 100 other startups, CEOs living off of, again, noodles and like bread, and we all shared food. And I was like,
we live off of passion. We live off of passion. Passion is our fuel and vision is fuel, right?
But it reminded me of college because I was like, I was the oldest person there. I had kids. Most people didn't have kids. They were young. They were sleeping on futons. And I'm like, I'm 40. I don't have time for this. And I was like, well, what y'all got for lunch? It was like we all shared, but we all understood it. When you're up at midnight trying to figure out something on your website, people would sit by you and say, what can I help you with, sis? Or such and such can do websites, or can you help them with the sales? And you're good at that. And we all talk the same language. And so I just continue to find tribes. Facebook groups are amazing. If you can find tribes, there is one that I really like. So just finding your tribe, because your friends will come along only until, like you said, they see the magic. But before then, you have to insulate your own heart and your own mental health with people that actually understand you and at least will cheer you on because they understand it. Despite what it looks like, they understand it.
Yeah. I heard John Maxwell one time say, like, a lot of times we confuse acknowledgement of success with actually achieving success. The recognition of success, that's nice. But success came way before that. All the times where you were up late, when you were tweaking your website, when you got your first sale, all of that was success. Now, when you're in the enterprise, the Black Enterprise magazine, the Essence magazine on InStyle, now, okay, that's the recognition of the success. But success happened way before that. It was happening pretty much probably daily, right? Because every time you made a step in the right direction, you were achieving success. What about you, Tori? How did you go about creating for yourself or finding a community when you know that you're in a sea of people who they just don't get it? Like at first I would be angry at people like, oh my gosh, these people are so negative. I just need to stay away from all these negative people. Haters, haters, haters. But what I started realizing, it wasn't that they were haters. They really just honestly did not get it. Right. So how did you kind of fight against that, especially coming straight out of school? You know, what did you major in at Spelman? Because we don't have a fashion degree.
No, I was a French major.
Oh, French major. Okay.
I was a French major. So for me, you know, what I think in the beginning, when you get all of that resistance, that's like a test to figure out whether or not you really want to do this. Because if you can't handle your friends and your family telling you that what you're doing is not right or you shouldn't do it, then, you know, in the future, you're going to face so much more. Yes. And so I think you have to develop this thick skin where you are so passionate about what you do that you can defend it in the face of anything. And if you don't feel that way, that's something to think about, you know, because as an entrepreneur, you have to rely on your own intuition for a lot of things. And I feel like that's how I built that muscle. You know, when people said, oh, why are you going to Italy? Oh, what are you doing? You think you could really do that? You know, I actually had someone that I worked with in the beginning. We severed our relationship and, you know, they said to me, you're not going to be able to do this without me. You know, so it's like that opposition, you have to fight through that and still want it that bad and figure it out and stay up late and just, it has to be an extension of who you are. You know, it's not something that you can turn off and turn on, at least for me, you know, my brand is an extension of who I am. It has my name on it. It's like, it has my personality and I embrace it all. And so I defend it, you know, and there are decisions that I've made that in talking to people, it's good to have opposition too, because you can kind of work things out, you know, you can kind of figure out, you kind of like talk through situations and maybe, you know, in the end of the conversation, if you're not still feeling strong about it, that's something to think about. But you do have to be like all in and on fire about what you are doing, because it is going to take a large part of your life.
You know what? That is such a good point. And it made me think of the fact I am a self-proclaimed serial entrepreneur. I don't know. Since I was 10, I did my first entrepreneur. Actually, I got the little thing. I sold these little things at a flea market. Teeny boppers. And so at 10 years old, I was like, okay, I'm going to make some money. I'm going to start my own venture. Then I started my own little dance company when I was in high school. And it was always like, I always had this thing where it was like, I needed to be leading something. You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't make a good employee. And I think sometimes like you'll hear stories of women who actually didn't do well in their corporate jobs because they weren't wired right that way. Right. I think you got to know how you're wired, because if you we got to have employees, and some people need to be great employees. We rely on employees. We rely on that support. But if you got to know, are you an entrepreneur like in your heart of hearts? Like if you were to not, you know, if your days were ending soon and you didn't pursue an entrepreneurial venture, would you have regrets? That's kind of like the test for me. Like, you know, it's like, if I did not do this, like I would feel like I missed the mark. Did anybody else kind of have that sort of feeling?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for me, it happened, I had an aunt of mine who passed away some years ago. And someone was up at the funeral reading the eulogy. And I was devastated because all they could say about my aunt was that she was a great mother, sister, aunt. But in my mind, there was nothing else to say. And I said, my God, I know this woman was amazing, but at what? You know, and it's not to say that every little day wasn't a miracle for her or amazing that she was here. And I'm so grateful to have had her. But I was like, I'm not going to go out without a story. I'm not going to go out without touching a life or two or 200. I'm not going to go out without changing something, a system, a person, a process, something. I wanted a story.
Yeah,
so for
I
me,
think you
it was
gotta
kind of
know.
fire. You know what I mean? I was like, y'all better have pages and pages and pages and pages of stuff to say, or people are coming up in droves. Like this lady, I just selfishly, I was like, I need to, and for me, I'm a Christian woman, and when I get there, wherever that is, I need the well done. I need the job well done, right?
And I think, again, that just goes back to your awareness, because truthfully, this is not everybody's path.
No, and it can't be.
Let me repeat that again. This is not everybody's path, because you, like, if you are a woman of faith, then you know that God has a plan for you, and what that looks like for you, where your sphere of influence is going to be. Get clarity around that, because God is not going to be expecting you to go forth and be an entrepreneur if he didn't wire you to be one. That's not how that works. So, I think that level of awareness is super, super important. Now, let's talk about something that I know all the women want to talk about. Money.
Get that money, girl.
Get money, right? Because when you're starting these ventures off, it's like you're on a hope, a prayer, and a whole bunch of borrowed money from somewhere, somehow. Like, for me, I know when I started, one of the business that I'm probably most known for now is Divinico. I basically was like, I need to keep this corporate job to fund Divinico. So Divinico stayed a side hustle for a long time. In fact, I stayed in that corporate job a long time because I was like, so if I don't have this income coming in, I won't have the money to continue to try to refine my marketing, try to refine my market, get my actual prototypes and all those kinds of things. So tell me, ladies, how did you go about financing it? Because that's a limited resource for most of us. So truthfully, Tori, because you were kind of straight out of school when you started moving in this direction, how did you get some capital to be able to start this business?
Right. Well, I worked for a number of years. Like I said, I taught at Morgan, and I also taught at an investment company. But for me, when I started the business, I chose a slow and steady route. I didn't come out and just, produce 20,000 units because that would take a lot of capital. At first, I just produced samples and just tested the samples in the market and refined my product. And then I did small productions. And then kept reinvesting. So, everyone has a different path, but for me, I didn't have the financing to come and be in,
make that big
5
splash.
or 10 major stores to make that big splash. But I also think that having a financial background made me choose this approach also, because there are a lot of things in the fashion industry that was kind of unsettling to me financially. Like if you sell to major retailers and you sell 10,000 units, you only make like a few pennies per unit, and you do all this work. And I've seen a lot of designers take that approach and invest all that money up front and then end up bankrupt. Because they're fronting the manufacturing for so many units, but then only getting a small profit margin. And it's just not sustainable for a lot of businesses.
Yeah,
so, slow and steady is great.
I could not agree with you more. I have found that, people look at Shark Tank and then they're just like, yes, you get the deal and then you're in Macy's. You get the deal, then you're in Nordstrom. And it's like, no.
Right. And you give up so much for that, because if you get investors in the beginning, you're giving up equity, you're giving up part of your business. So, it's a trade-off.
Yes.
It's a trade-off.
Yes.
Do you want to maintain ownership and take it slowly, or give up your business and grow quickly?
Kimba, I know your story is pretty unique about how you raised money for your business. I was like reading and I was like, for real? Tell us about that.
I had to hit the road, Jack. I had to hit the road.
I love it.
Being a Black woman, unfortunately, less than 1% of us ever get major venture capital funding. And as Tori alluded to, my partner and I were both Black women, but we also decided that we were not ready to share or give up any part of our business. So that's where the equity piece comes in. I mean, each of us own the business 50-50. So already somebody comes in, they literally typically want 25 to 35% of your business. So I'm like, that's a whole nother partner and they ain't gonna be doing the work. I don't think so. So we kiboshed that idea and we said, well, we've got to hit the road. So we had an initial investment of about $40,000 of our own money together. And because I'm just going to give y'all the real deal. Yeah.
Yes, please do.
Because it's helpful that people share in that way. Because sometimes people are out here like, I don't think this is right. And honestly, there were people who started with $500. It just so happened that for us, we're very inventory heavy. I mean, every single bottle and the label and the pump and the box that it comes in had to be purchased. And so it's, when you are consumer products, good companies, it's really, really much more cost heavy upfront, I believe. And so we had our initial investment, did research and development for about a year. And then I left corporate because I was like, I'm tired of, Becky not seeing the value in me. And so no shout out to all the Beckys, but no shade, but whatever, shout out. And so I left corporate. So when we started the company, my partner was a full-time physician. She still is to this day. And the agreement was that I would be running the business full-time. So I also went after Spelman to get my MBA. So shout out to all the MBAs, right, Tori? And for those of you who can resonate with that, but that really helped me to really talk the talk and walk the walk from a business perspective. And so I was like,
did you feel like you needed that MBA to validate you in the spaces that you were operating in?
I did, actually. So first it was about, I have to prove that I can do this, because again, remember in my corporate career, I was climbing the ranks, and there's so much you can do before people start looking at where are your credentials. And of course, Spelman is one thing, right? But then they're like, well, what about a master's degree? And I'm like, dang it.
Right.
So you feel like it's, the John Henry syndrome. You have to run faster and jump higher, and you're constantly having to attain. Meanwhile, there are folks that don't do half as much as you do, and certainly nobody asks them questions.
Yeah.
So the money piece was tough, and in order to find it, I had to go pitch for it. So I found that I had obviously a penchant for speaking. And if you couldn't tell already, but that's my gift. I've been in sales my entire career, so I knew I could sell anything to anyone. And that's essentially what you're doing in a pitch competition. I'm selling the passion and the idea behind my brand. And shy of $85,000 later, that's what I've been able to do.
You raised $85,000 doing pitches? Business pitches?
Yes, ma'am.
Like, oh my goodness. So like, did you go Google them? How did you even know where to start with that?
Google the hell out of them, honey. Trust me,
all right. Hey, Google is our friend. Hello, Google University.
Especially now.
Yeah, especially now.
So much focus on Black businesses.
Exactly. So now you've got so many people and this was a couple of years ago when nobody was saying anything about Black businesses. It was just like, good luck, baby girl,
Right.
So this is a great time, but I just Googled the heck out of them. And as I would learn them one year, I would just miss one and mark it in my calendar for the next year and keep an eye on it. I mean, it's intense. So I probably won that over about a year and a half, but I had to travel. I had to leave town. I got on planes. I got on other people's stages. And I was like, girl, I didn't leave my 3 kids for nothing. So I got on that stage.
Come home with some money.
Lit it up, baby.
That is amazing. That is amazing. That is amazing. Yep. I think my experience with getting money for businesses, and again, I've had multiple, I'm thinking, because both my sister and I have been in service industries, which of course is going to be very different in terms of what the capital requirements are. And you don't have any assets, you don't have any purchase orders, you don't have anything that a lender is going to look to and say, oh yes, I have confidence I'll get my money back. And so, Tulani, do you want to talk just a little bit about what did you do to get the first few $1,000s to start your dance company?
Sure. The first few thousand that I acquired for my business actually came surprisingly from a Navy Federal loan that I
credit union. Listen, y'all, I'm telling you, a lot of times people sleep on the credit unions, but credit unions tend to be more favorable to small businesses. And so I wanted her to share that because she was fresh out of school, ain't had no real much assets, but she had a little bit of credit. And so that allowed her to be able to secure the first few $1,000s.
Yeah.
I remember starting a service business a long time ago. We were doing some small business consulting and just needed to have a space because you got to look the part and all this stuff. And we went through a micro lender called Accion, Accion. And a lot of people aren't familiar with that, but they actually started their business making microloans to women in developing countries, and then brought that model here to the United States to help small businesses. And so you could get small amounts of loans from like $2,500 to like $10,000. And that's how, you know, one of the first businesses that I started that we got funding. So I wanted our listeners to hear some of the creative ways that, you know, each of us have had to go about kind of bootstrapping, because nobody went out and got big equity money. So how did we go about bootstrapping? Now, we talked a little bit about YouTube University. Tell me about, how did you educate yourself? Like, okay, because Kimba, you didn't have a background per se in feminine care products, right? So, and Tori, I mean, I know you went to France, but were there some other things that you were doing to get educated about, like, how do you even start a shoe business? Like, how? I mean, I know some of it is just God connecting it, because I remember you were saying
Definitely.
All of it. All of
you
it.
met all of it, right? You met
Yes.
up at a convent, and like somebody was making shoes at a convent. Like, I'm like,
Yes. Yeah.
divine.
When I studied abroad when I was at Spelman my junior year, and stayed at a convent in Venice. And the nun said to me that there was a shoemaker doing a demonstration. So that was the first connection. And, you know, I think for me, with that experience, and then later on, I went back to Italy and just did research, talked to people, networked, tried to understand the industry, learned about leather. I took a shoemaking course here in the US. And so I just consumed myself with everything that had to do with shoes. You know, what kind of leather is good quality leather, just learning about the regulations of shoe companies in the US, and just everything I could learn. But what happened is I was connected to someone who just opened up all of these suppliers for me in Italy.
Wow.
In my networking. And that person led me back to Venice, where I first started. And so this is where the divine intervention comes in. When that situation happened for me, it was just like, okay, this is right. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be, because of that full circle moment.
Yes.
And, you know, I just had full confidence in the connections that I made at that time for that reason. So I didn't know everything. You know, I studied a lot. I learned all that I can, but there was a lot that I didn't know. But there were things like that that happened that made me understand that I had made the right connection, that I was choosing the right situation. And it was just trial and error. You know, like I said, I started small. So in my first productions, I would see things that I would do differently for the next production, and so on. Instead of coming out with 10,000 units and having it being a disaster and going
Can I tell you a
under.
disaster story? Can I tell you
Sure.
a disaster story? All right. So when I started Divinico, I was so excited, right? I had this design. I just thought it was the best design ever. So it was rhinestones on the front, and on the back of it, I had these affirmations. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this convention and I'm going to sell. I think I ordered like 300 shirts, which was a lot for me. So I was like, I know I can sell these 300 shirts. So I go to this event, and the first lady, she sees, oh, I love this. I want one of these shirts. She gets it. She comes back to me. Can you hear me? Okay. She comes back to me like 5 minutes later, and she goes, I have something to show you. And I was like, what is it? She shows me the back of the shirt, and there's a grammar error. Oh my word. Like, how am I wound up calling the screen printer. Like, he was like, okay, so there's this solution you can buy. And I was like manually, like one of the words had an S on the end, and it shouldn't have had an S, right? So it made the subject verb agreement incorrect. So I was like, literally had spraying on the shirts. I had a coffee stirrer taking the S up off the screen printing off 300 shirts.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy. That's like that's how it is with production. That's one of the risks of production, is that they can get something wrong. For me, my challenge was the fact that everybody that I worked with spoke Italian and I didn't. So when I was writing my orders, if I said I want this shoe in rose, they may think, oh, rose is yellow. I've had that happen where they made the wrong color.
Wow.
And so, I decided to learn all of the colors in Italian and all of the shoe terms. So now I know all the shoe terms. I'm working on the language, but I know those shoe terms.
You don't speak conversational Italian. You speak shoe industry Italian.
Shoe industry Italian.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You do with yes. Soul.
Yeah. When I say I want these boots to be from suede, they're Velo Kid. They're not suede. They're Velo Kid.
Absolutely.
You have to specify. Yeah,
Absolutely.
because once you have them made, you can't redo shoes.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You can't redo shoes.
Tell me, all right, we're talking about all the good stuff, the juicy good stuff. It's great now, isn't it? In a lot of ways, but tell me about a disaster story. We got any disaster stories that we want to share? Why am I the one with all the disaster stories? Oh my gosh. So I'll start it off. Maybe this will help. So
okay, I have one if you don't want to go.
Okay, cool. Okay. All right. I'm going to share mine, then I want to hear yours. So basically, my husband and I 2 years ago decided that we were going to supplement our income and buy a franchise in a mall. And so we did this thing, put the money down, all this stuff. We were so excited. Yay, we got the t-shirt, we got the pictures. And within months, we learned a lot about lease agreements. Let me just tell y'all, I have a PhD in lease agreements now as a result of that experience. Wow. Because it was a couple of terms in our lease agreement that allowed for a competitor to come in and just disrupt what we were doing. And then COVID came and all the malls got shut down and the restaurants got shut down. And so it was just like, really? Is this really happening? Like, Lord, like you brought me to this business and now this is where we are. And so I had to learn that sometimes, going out on faith and taking that leap, it doesn't always work out, right? And so what do you do in those moments where it worked out? It doesn't work out. And you got to find that resilience. You got to find that bounce back. You got to find that pivot to be able to say, okay, that didn't work out. All right, so Lord, thank you for clearing that up for me. That ain't where I'm supposed to be, and moving me in the direction where I'm supposed to be. And so I think, though, a lot of it has to do with the mindset that we choose to take on after we have the horror stories, right? How we decide to move forward when that horror story happens. So that's my horror story. That's one of many. Because I know we all have many horror stories along the way. Nobody gets to this place where it's just like, oh, it's all been sweet. It's all been, girl, first year we made, this much. Next year, girl, we doubled it next year. That hasn't been my experience. Maybe that's been y'all's. But
I know.
What'd you say?
I said I have plenty horror stories.
Right, exactly.
Unfortunately.
It's part of the deal.
Yeah, I think so. And I think from each situation that I've encountered, I think I've learned from them and it's made me a stronger and better business owner. But one specific story that that comes to mind is it has to do with leases as well.
Oh gosh.
We got a space inside of a mall to hold classes. And in the lease, at the time it was fall, so it was cool outside. The temperature was nice. And in the lease, it said something about the AC unit, but I was excited about, the new space and didn't really look too much into what it said exactly, even though I think I might have had you read over the lease, but either way. So fall comes and goes, everything's great.
The space is comfortable. Everyone's happy. We go into winter, also pretty good, no issues. As it starts to warm up in the springtime, so does this space. And it got warmer and warmer as we got into summer, and we realized that the AC unit was not working, and this was an older mall. And so in the lease, it stated that it was our responsibility to have the unit fixed, which at the time, this was like a $10,000 issue.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I didn't realize that. I was like, the air is out. You guys need to fix it. Pretty simple. And they were like, no, ma'am, it's in the lease. It's your responsibility.
It's your responsibility. I think that is so important, though, in terms of contracts. That a lot of times in terms of business owners, we do get excited about having an opportunity for the first time, or having this, this lease or whatever it is. And we sometimes miss the I's and don't dot all the T's, or don't consider all the variables. And so I think that is an important lesson that, of course, now with the leases, it's like, if you can't do nothing else, pay for a lawyer to review your lease.
Absolutely.
If you literally can't afford that, then maybe God's saying, hold on a minute. Right? Because in those experiences, though, we learn those little lessons that sometimes those closed doors where things just don't work out and we can't, get it back on track, that's God saying, okay, pause, think about it. So I can definitely relate to that. Kimba, you got one for us?
You know what? It's not really a disaster story. Could have been a disaster, but I really trusted God and had a contingency. So I think the lesson for foreshadowing purposes is trust your gut and take chances. And so I had the opportunity to go to China several years ago when we first started the business. I'd always wanted to go to China. I was like, this is where business is, and I got to figure this out. So I go and realize that in China, you have to buy a minimum order of, or minimum number of things. And I couldn't afford to do that at the time. We had just started the business 6 months before. And I was like, I don't have that. I can't do 50,000 right now. I can buy 5, right? And usually it's 10,000, 50, multiples of 5,000, but starting at 10. And so I still wanted to go and have a great time and understand the networks, because I said, one day I'll be back and I'll be ready. It's just not now. So it wasn't a waste of time. It's fine. Yes. Anyway, I get back to the US, and the packaging that was custom that we had been buying, the manufacturer says, hey, listen, this is your last run. We're not making this anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm sorry, what?
Right.
They're like, yeah, this was a surplus item. So we had thousands and thousands of units, but at this point they're all gone. And so they were like, good luck. This literally, it's like our signature bottle. We can't find it. It literally does not exist anywhere else. Wow. And I was like, thank you, God. Let me go to my little notebook I got from China and go dig up something. Child, when I tell you, and I don't speak a lick of Mandarin, so shout out to Tori with the languages. To this day, I go to China every year to talk to my suppliers. I still don't speak Mandarin. I'm like, girl, bye. Google Translate. It'll be fine. I don't need how is hello and let's talk about business. That's it.
Right.
But I was able to dig up the suppliers that I had met and didn't think I was ready. And God made it so that we would be ready. Like when I needed to be ready, we figured it out. Hustled up money, hustled up whatever.
Right.
And literally had to custom make another bottle, new packaging, colors, the whole nine. And by the time it was here, it was time. Like we had literally run out. It was nothing. We could not find it anywhere else in the whole world. Seriously. Wow. So what could have been a disaster ended up being a nice way of just kind of trusting the process. And learning, like Tori mentioned, learning along the way, because you never know when it's going to come back and benefit you and your business. It would typically will. Anything that you can learn about the business, regardless of what piece it comes from, just keep learning because it will help you at the end. So that would be the lesson there for sure.
Oh, that's good, man. That's like the classic dust yourself off and get it back up. I think the thing about, though, entrepreneurs is that I always tell everybody, you have to be a little bit naive and a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur.
You do.
You really do, because you're going to believe things that nobody else believes, and you're going to see things that nobody else sees. Like, you know, somebody looks at this little note card and it's like, oh, that's just a note card. And then one of these entrepreneurs are like, oh, but if you fold it this way and do, you know, and cut a little hole here, now you've got a mask. And they're like,
origami or something.
right? Like, are you serious? Entrepreneurs see things literally. That's why I say we're a little bit crazy and a little bit naive, because we do see things that other people don't see, and we believe things that other people don't believe. And so part of that journey is recognizing you're gonna have to believe some different stuff, and and I think coming to grips with the fact that there are gonna be some failures.
Right. But I do want to say this, Naja. I want to say that please, any of you, not obviously the ladies on this call, but those of you who are listening, don't ever let anybody tell you your dream's not worth it, because that vision is yours, given to you by higher power,
Absolutely.
whoever it is you believe in. And they won't see it. It's not their vision, it's your own. So don't ever cry about even your husband. My husband, I have to throw him under the bus for 2 seconds. He didn't see it. I was like, boy, bye. Like, you gonna have to figure it out. So even the people who you love and trust and who you feel like should get it, they won't. But again, you know, I'm doing coochie products, so maybe he didn't get it. But the point is, so I get why he didn't get it. But it's nobody else's vision but your own. So when people say they can't see it, they don't have the same lenses that you do.
Absolutely.
I had to learn that and stop crying about it and just move forward and say, but this is my vision. So I get that you don't get it, but you'll see. And of course, it's when other people see it, the Vogues and the Essences, and when they see it, then everybody all of a sudden got the glasses. They're like, girl, I see it. You're like,
right. Yeah. And I would add to that, you know, people should also know that failing is not a sign that you're down the wrong path. You're going to fail. You're going to fail continuously. Failure is not a sign that you're going down the wrong path. I mean, failure is a part of the cycle of being an entrepreneur. Every so often, you are going to fail. You're going to have a moment. And I call it like my couch moments, where sometimes stuff hits me like, okay, well, I need to rethink this. Let me just shut down for like a week or two and figure this out. But then I figure it out. I solve the problem. I learn from it. And I hope to never make that same mistake again. And that has been part of my education. You know, I've learned so many things about manufacturing shoes, importing shoes. At one point, I was importing exotic leathers and that whole importing process, and just, you know, making different mistakes along the way, and just all the things that I've learned. I mean, that's the reason that I've learned so much. So just keep going. Failure, everyone fails at some point.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, I don't think I even consider them as failures, right? They are lessons that I had to learn. And it's better you learn them early before you're making $1 million mistakes, right? Like, I get it. Hundreds of dollars is hard. Thousands of dollars hard. Baby, you don't want to be making $1 million mistakes, right? So count it all blessings, baby. Seriously. And say, thank you, Lord, for teaching me now so that I can improve and be better later, honestly.
You know, some of the things that I would do too, also when I had what you would call a failure, but you're really falling forward, right? Yeah. Make sure after that you do a full debrief of what happened, so that you don't forget them and what you learned from them, so that, because those situations are going to arise again. They may not look exactly the same. It'll be a similar situation, clothed in a little different outfit, but it's going to come back. And so you want to make sure that you can go back to, okay, I've been here before, and believing that a solution will come and it's going to work out, I think is just so valuable. Oh my goodness.
That is so valuable.
You are not going to believe this. We've been talking for a whole hour already. It goes so fast. Yes, it does. When we start getting chit-chatting, you're like, oh, how does that happen? Oh my goodness, an hour is so long. But once we start chatting and really going into things that we're passionate about, the time just goes by fast. So as we're closing out, I always like to close out the show with thinking about the woman who's on the other end of this conversation. And she is like, I want to start a business. I don't know exactly where to start. What is the one piece of advice that you would give her before she decides, hey, I'm going to be my own boss?
I can go first with this one. And this is advice that I probably should have given myself. But, that is that you should have a plan. I mean, totally vital that you have some sort of idea as to what you want to do. Of course, you have an idea in your head, but you need to have something, you know, written out, something that you can kind of reference and know exactly how you're going to achieve whatever that is that you're trying to achieve. So definitely have a plan going into this so that you can be successful.
Yeah. I think that's really important because a lot of times, especially entrepreneurs tend to be quite creative. I hate to say it, we can be a little bit flaky, just saying a little bit. But, you know, it's like taking the time to like sit down and write it out and see it is so important because having the vision is nice, but then that vision has to turn into a plan. So I think that's a good point, Tulani, to basically say, you know what, I'm going to take that vision and that's great, but now I want to put this plan on paper and really kind of test the plan. What about you, Tori? What would you tell her?
I would actually add to that. I would say have a plan, but then also have some flexibility because things evolve, things change. I think part of being an entrepreneur is having the intuition and the insight to know when to shift, to know when, like for me, I mean, shoes have changed since I first started. It'll be my 10-year anniversary next year. And literally the shoes, thank you.
A decade, baby.
Yeah, and if you look over the course of that time, you know, style has changed, people's preferences have changed. And if I had said, I'm only going to make this and this is how it's going to go, and that was the plan for 10 years, then I would not, I don't think I still be here, you know. COVID hit, you know, you shift another way. I think it's kind of like you have to have that ability to train yourself to have the ability to be perceptive and just really take in things, you know, not just your particular industry, take in the news, take in things that are going on, you know, in the financial markets. Everything is somehow connected to your business.
Absolutely.
And you have to make decisions based on broad information.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, you guys talked about Google University, but I'm also a big fan of Podcast University. Y'all, there is so much free information out there. So many people who've already done it. Even if you don't know where to start, just hearing people's stories and hearing their experience and their journey can trigger something that says, oh, okay, yeah, I could, or maybe you got a nice little nugget of information that you can write down. So have a little journal where you're keeping information and compiling your knowledge and building your knowledge base about whatever it is you're trying to go into, and even understanding yourself, because you really need to understand yourself as an individual, what you're good at, what you're not good at. I mean, in the beginning, you do everything, right? But at a certain point, you got to be like, yo, I am not good at fulfillment. I need to not be doing this. So, you know, that's one of the things that I'm like, okay, what could my time be better used doing? If it could be better used growing the business than doing this, then let's figure out if there's a way to do that. Maybe you need to bring in a partner. Maybe you need to bring in an assistant. Maybe you need to get a virtual assistant. Whatever those things are that you can do to basically position yourself to, you know, grow. So Kimba, what about you? What's that one thing that you would tell that woman as she is about to embark on this entrepreneur journey?
Oh, I have more than one thing, of course.
I know you do.
So I'm gonna have 1.5.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So first I would say, know what makes you and your business special and different, and run like hell. Run like hell with that, and it needs to it could be one thing, just run like hell with that thing. Because that's what's going to separate you from the crowd. Nobody's ideas are truly that unique. Many of us are out here fighting amongst many, right? You won't find a business that is one of a kind anymore, but you have to be able to differentiate yourself and rise above the noise, basically. Because if you can't do that, it's very easy to get swallowed up and not stay the course. And the other half of advice I would say is something that I alluded to before is
please
find that network. You've got to find the network, because a lot of times you'll find other entrepreneurs who have been there and done that and can help you shortcut some of the things. Now, here's what I'm not saying is not do your work, because many folks don't want to share with you if they feel like you're constantly asking, you're not giving, right? So it's one thing to ask for advice around direction, but you also need to understand the work for yourself. So be self, sufficient and reliant, but also find a network that finds that there's a mutually beneficial arrangement between everybody who can all allow each of you to rise together.
Yes,
so I think
that's awesome. Before we close out, I want to make sure that everybody who is listening knows where to find these boss womenpreneurs. Okay, they're doing amazing things, and I want to make sure that we take some time for you to just tell us about your business and where we can find you, where we can get your products, where we can find your business so that we can support you. Tori, you want to start? I see you got those amazing shoes up in the background.
Gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yes, girl.
I also
we see
do
you.
handbags.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So my brand is called Tori Sudan, and I sell my shoes and handbags online at torisudan.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Tori Sudan, and they're all Italian made shoes and handbags.
That is awesome. Y'all check her Instagram is on fire. Like just seeing the images of her stuff, you will be like, whoa. And to know that a brown face is behind that, it just gives you just swell with pride. All right, Kimba, tell us about where we can find you. Tell us more about Couché and just tell us all the things.
Oh, girl, there's so many things, but I'll keep it short. So Couché, darling, let's not overthink it. It's coochie Frenchified, but it is the first and only OBGYN created and all natural toxin-free feminine healthcare product line. And so these particular products are not necessarily in the menstruation space. A lot of people get confused about what that means, but these are sort of some of the lotions and potions that women need to maintain their feminine wellness. So these are pH balanced washes, deodorant sprays for down there. A lot of women who are active worry about odors down there, and this is literally the only product on the market just like that. We've got balms for thighs that high five that ain't supposed to be high fiving, girl.
Oh, wow.
Thick creams for ingrown hairs for those of you who like to wax and shave. Issues with yeast infections, BV. We have capsules for that you would actually insert as well. So because my co-founders at OBGYN, we are constantly and consistently on the cusp of what women need every single day to maintain feminine wellness. So if you're looking for all natural solutions, check out Couché at KUSHAE.com. It's all natural care for down there.
That is awesome. And aren't you in Whole Foods, I think?
Yes, actually, we just landed a contract with Whole Foods during COVID. So listen, nothing is impossible. But to be honest, we landed in January and then COVID hit and we pumped the brakes. We're like, yeah, not a good time. And then we just relaunched in, I believe it was late June, early July. So we're there now in markets, particularly in Florida, and then looking to expand into the entire Southeast. So we wanted to take it slow because everybody's not really back yet, right? So that's where we are. And then if you guys want business and entrepreneurial advice, I actually do business coaching for select entrepreneurs in the health and wellness space. And you can find me at kimbawilliams.com and holla at your girl if you want pitch advice or anything like that. So would love to help you guys.
Awesome sauce, Kimba. Thank you so much for sharing that awesome stuff for down there. And we all need to take care of down there.
Down there, darling. Yeah,
so, everybody who's listening to this is a potential customer. So definitely pay attention and check out her website at Couché. Is it Couché.com?
Couché.com, yeah.
Awesome sauce. Tulani, tell everybody about your award winning. Every time I go into your studio, they're like, medals and trophies and all kinds of things all over the place from all the things that you've won as a choreographer and as a dance studio. So tell people, where can they find your company if they have a young person, boy or girl, that's interested in dance as an outlet, and that you're still working it even during COVID. So let them know.
We definitely are still open. Our name is Dance Studio 33, and you can find us online. We are offering both virtual and in-studio classes. So the website is www.dancestudio33.com. And we also have Instagram, Dance Studio 33, as well as a Facebook, which is Dance Studio 33 as well. We are located in the Decatur area. So if you're familiar with like downtown Decatur, we're off of Valley Brook Road. So we're super close if you're in the downtown Decatur area. And
that's Metro Atlanta. So if you're in the Metro Atlanta area and you're downtown Decatur and are looking for opportunities for your child in terms of dance, and they have all different kinds, everything, right? Ballet, jazz, tap, all hip hop, African.
And we do have virtual options. So for those parents who are still kind of uneasy about getting out there in the world, we totally understand that. So we do offer virtual classes as well.
Oh, cool.
COVID pivot. Anyway, I'm not even going to go into that, but we all know about it.
We already know how you feel about it.
Yes. Thank you so much, ladies, for this amazing conversation. I learned something myself. I am sure that those who are listening, I already see comments and feedback. Thank you, Monique Hunter, saying that it was a great discussion. So I thank you for what you all brought to the table. So as you are thinking about, are you ready to be your own boss? Just take into consideration that, put together a plan, but yet still be flexible. Trust your intuition and your perception and understand what makes your business special. Even if you have a bakery, what makes your baked product special? Because there's something about it if you're making it that's different from somebody else. And don't forget about creating that tribe or network. Those are my key takeaways that I took away from this amazing conversation. There was so much more, but I thank you, ladies, so much for the nuggets that you dropped. And again, I look forward to meeting with everybody again next Friday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Nija Drakes, founder of Spark Her Blaze, where we are empowering women to spark their flame so that they can blaze their uniquely divine trail through purposeful mindsets, purposeful priorities, and purposeful pursuits. And I look forward to you coming back and joining us again on Facebook at Spark Her Blaze and online at www.sparkherblaze.com. Thank you so much for listening. And ladies, thank you again for a fabulous discussion.
Thank you, Nija.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, ladies. Take care.